Welcome to Tutor Boot, where each week we talk about news related to HR and the world of work. We toot the news we like and we boot the news we don't like. I'm your host, Stacey Nordwall, a serial joiner of early stage tech companies as their first in or only HR person. And joining us today, we have good friend, Lindsay Kaplan. Welcome, Lindsay.
Hello, Stacey. It's so good to see you and be here with you. Thank you for doing this with me.
I am so glad to have you on. Tell the listeners a little bit about yourself.
Sure. My name is Lindsay Kaplan, and I am the lead consultant and founder of a consultancy called The Gathering Effect. And my background is a little bit weird. It's a mix of communication, learning and development, and organizational psychology. And my specialty is helping companies what I call match a message with a moment to create an effect. So anytime we want to put people in a room, give them content and sort of poof, change them, that's my expertise. So a lot of all hands offsites, leadership development programs, town halls, things of the like. That's what I specialize in. And I'm really happy to do this here with you and give some strong opinions.
Let's see. Well, I had some strong opinions reading some of these articles today, so I think it lends itself well to this. We're going to start off by talking about a Forbes article I saw. The title is Why Polyworking is the Future of Work and How to Become a Polyworker. My recap of what is in this article is basically polyworking is what they say it is a growing trend of managing multiple concurrent jobs rather than relying on a single source of income. I call this hustle and grind 2.0. It's nothing new. What did you think? And so it's a huge boot for me. It's a boot. But I'm interested what you thought about it.
Wait, why do you think it's a boot?
I think, okay, this is the thing. I think it's a boot because of the fact that it just sounds like I said, it's just another hustle and grind, right? It's just another, like, don't expect to have one job and make ends meet. You can have multiple jobs as though it's a privilege to have so many jobs. And that is the thought that I kind of walked away after reading it. But was it not, were you going to toot it?
I was gonna toot it and I'll tell you
Oh,
why. Yeah,
okay. No, I love
we're
it. I
starting
love
off so
it.
strong here. So I am someone right now who has cobbled together a mix of career experiences into one kind
Mm,
of consultancy. And so um, I have multiple clients and multiple projects that I work at on, at a time. Would I consider myself a poly worker? No. But I appreciate the opportunity to do that and to have
mm,
the freedom and flexibility that I think this article is speaking to. Now,
mm,
so in practice, I'm excited that people can have that autonomy and choice and make what they want from their career and their choices. Now, the boot side of this is one that people feel that they have to do this because they either need more income or because they're afraid of losing their job or because of other factors that make it feel like it's, well, I have to hustle, otherwise I don't survive. That's
yeah.
the, for me, the toot is that people are making work for them.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's complicated, but I was like, yeah, okay. I know this is true for multiple people, so yeah.
Yeah. Uh, yeah, I felt more of the boot side because I felt, especially in the framing of this, it to me felt very much like, oh, well, you have your quote unquote primary job. So that's why the framing to me was still that you have a kind of a primary, right? Like your job. But then also, how about be personally fulfilled on the side with more jobs or reduce burnout on the side with more jobs and grow your career with more jobs? And I was like, no. I mean, I think what you're talking about, if it was framed in the way that you are kind of talking about as your experience of like, I'm able to do all of these different things to create my experience. That for me is different than the way that they framed it of like you have this one job and then do more on top of it. And I felt like we had moved out of the hustle and grind era, and I was so happy for that because it just felt like so much. And then you wonder why people are burnt out, and you wonder why there's this wave of employees that kind of now expect more from their employers. It's because there was the expectations had gone down for so long. I felt like
Hmm.
because of this, work, just bust your ass all the time mentality. And so I was not reading that. I felt like, oh, are we doing this again, but just coming up with a different and a more annoying, trendy name for it?
Of course we are. Yeah. That's what the world does, right? Yeah, no, I definitely hear both sides. There is a sadness to the idea that people feel that they have to do this, and there is an excitement about the opportunity for people to make these choices and hustle if they want to, not if they have to.
Yeah.
So that's the line there. Um, and yeah, I just know that this is true for so many people who
Mhm.
have full-time jobs that I know, and then also have their own sort of thing on the side, whether it's executive coaching or something else. Because also to your point, there's loyalty is hard to come by both on the employee side and the employer side. So there's a level of just self-protection that I also
Yeah.
an article of just I have to do what's best for me. And this is kind of the way it is, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, I mean, that's the real bummer part, right? Is that people feel, and I think they even touched that in the article, but almost kind of spun it in another way of like, oh, well, you don't have to worry if you lose a job because you have so many jobs. Like, can I just have one job that I don't fear that I'm going to lose all the time? That would be
Yeah.
great.
Oh, yeah. As we're talking, I'm like, I wonder what, people in Europe think of this conversation. I feel like this feels uniquely American, this
Hmm.
idea. And I just, I picture people in France or Spain, one job, we're done at 3 p.m. and we take 6 weeks of vacation. And what are you talking about, you silly Americans? So, stereotypes galore in that sentence, but I do wonder what they would think of this.
Yeah. No, that is a good point. I do think you're right, especially too, because, part of this is, I always bring it back in a way to healthcare, right? That when healthcare is tied to employment, this especially gets tricky for me because I think uh great, I love flexibility. I love being able to, craft and my own work experience. But when my healthcare is tied to my job, that gets a lot more complicated.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a theme to all these articles, I think, as I was reading them, and I know we can get into it, but I think it's around self-protection
Hmm.
and trust.
Oh yeah. Yep.
And anyway, I think it speaks to the larger issue at hand.
For sure. For sure. And along with that, I'm going to move us along to the next article. I
I
thought
give you the segue, Stacey. You're welcome.
I
Just
know.
eat it up.
You just teed it up. This is what makes you a great podcast guest. Uh, we're going to talk about the article. The title is US Consumer Watchdog Cautions Businesses on Surveillance of Workers. And the recap here is that the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau has issued guidance that the Fair Credit Reporting Act of 1970, which is meant to protect consumers and promotes accuracy, fairness, and the privacy of personal information assembled by credit reporting agencies, can also apply to employees. And the CFPB director said, quote, the kind of scoring and profiling we've long seen in credit markets is now creeping into employment and other aspects of our lives. Our action today makes clear that long-standing consumer protections apply to these new domains just as they do to traditional credit reports, unquote. And I thought this was really fascinating. I even went to the circular that they released to like read more about what it was. But I want to get your take on it. What did you think after reading it?
Toot toot,
Yeah, toot
toot
it.
toot 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 toot, all those things.
Yes.
Um, yeah, just good. I mean, again, we're talking about, I think, these themes of trust and self-protection.
Yes.
And okay, I think this is very real. That tools, whatever they are, I'm not educated enough to know them or name them. People are being watched, especially if they work remotely or, have a work laptop. And so whatever we can do to sort of protect people, um, uh, and help them feel, they're not being literally watched every second of every day, treat people like adults, I am
Yeah.
a big fan of.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. This again is that theme of self-protection and trust. I think especially like with RTOs, remote work, as you called out, that, tracking people's time online, tracking where their laptop is, having them badge in places and tracking that, all of this kind of surveillance that kind of even comes with like at the same time that people are like, oh, AI is going to be so great, then it's like AI is being implementing in a lot of weird ways to kind of monitor people. And I don't, it brings up a lot of interesting issues about like consent and where is the regulation and legislation around this because it's such a new thing that it's not regulated yet, right? And I think it's good to have the regulations that do exist as this kind of like bridge until it is really regulated and it is really looked at to say like, hey, employers don't just get to do whatever they want without transparency and consent. Um, uh, and so yeah, I think for me that was a huge factor of like why I thought this was good and why I think it's a toot. Because you don't want, especially when they're talking about some of the things that companies could be using AI for, is like evaluating people's social media content, assessing the likelihood of workers engaging in union organizing activity. And I'm like, no, no, this
Yeah.
is
Where's
not
the
okay.
line? Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't know where the line is. I think um there's so much I don't have um the context for about why companies feel the need to be such watchdogs or surveillance kind of monsters for their
Hmm.
employees right now. I don't, again, I'd love to know the reasoning. I'd love to have a conversation with someone who's much more educated and in the know about these kinds of things. Because I speak to this with some naivete, but I just feel like if we're wondering why employees are rebelling or going and getting additional jobs or putting in less effort or more afraid to speak up or whatever these things are that are tampering down innovation or creativity or other business metrics, we might look to some of our practices around trying to control and monitor our employees at every single step.
Yeah, 100%, right? We've heard over and over again that building psychological safety is critical to building, healthy and engaged teams. How are you going to build psychological safety if there's no trust and you're monitoring employees in these kinds of ways?
Do you think we're being monitored right now, Stacey?
Let's hope not.
That'd be fun. Wonder what they'd find.
I mean, yeah, wait, I was about to go down a rabbit hole on that. I'm not going to talk about what they'd find.
Okay.
I mean, nothing particularly interesting, but maybe too many medical searches.
Well, I mean, they might find some political views, if
Hmm.
I'm speaking for myself.
Yeah,
Might find a lot of Kamala Harris rally watches on YouTube. I don't know what they would find. They
yeah,
might make assumptions about that. I mean, um, yeah, I think it's unfortunate. And again, I'd like to know some of the larger trends that are asking companies or forcing companies to think that this is important for them these days. And yeah, just why they're doing this. I'd love to know.
yeah, Yeah, and that actually is yet another good segue, I feel like, to our next article, which is why being in HR is getting tougher and how to break through. And the recap here, this is a discussion. It's going back to this New York Times article that came out over the summer that there were a lot of reactions to, that a friend of the show, Hiba Youssef, was quoted in about, is HR miserable? And they dive into what it might be that HR is feeling, after these 5 years of extremes, and just talk about the level of stress and the feelings of friction and what HR is spending their time on, how they're being kind of treated and represented within the business. Um, so yeah, this one for me was a toot. I felt seen.
Mm,
What did
yeah.
you think?
Yeah, I think it's a toot with maybe an asterisk.
Oh, there was a hesitation in that toot, and I'm curious.
Um, okay, so I know most people listening to this work in HR. So, um, I like to think of myself as like HR adjacent, maybe.
Mm,
Um, I wonder if you write this article for, let's say, chief marketing officers, if they're like, yeah, it's getting tougher to be a CMO. Yeah, it's getting tougher to be a salesperson. Yeah, like insert other professions, or I wonder if this is true outside of this world that we live in. And my gut reaction would be, yeah, probably. I don't think life has gotten easier for a specific profession or department in the past 5 years. I could be wrong, but
mhm.
I wonder if the answer is, I wonder if that there is someone there. So I read this and I go, yeah, I mean, yes, yes, toot, I agree. And I'm also like, who else feels this way? And is this again some systems issue versus it's just HR?
Mm.
So I'll pause there, but that's why the asterisk.
Yeah, I think I feel like I've seen that come up as part of the discussion before about, what makes HR different. I think for me, part of that difference is that there is this in between employers and in between employees, and that many other functions don't have to walk that line in that same way or at all. And there is that sense more so that they give an example of, hey, a senior leader comes in and says, oh well, HR, and it's like, skirt, hold up. HR, no, 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 no. We all made this decision, and or I wasn't even there. You made the decision, and now I'm telling people, and you're gonna throw HR under the bus. And so I think that happens, that kind of navigation exists for HR in ways that it doesn't exist for others.
Yeah, that is very common, and we can be scapegoated and labeled the bad guy, and very, very, very common. And I think if you ask the average, non-HR employee, a common narrative is to label HR as the enemy, both because people need an enemy, but also because it's just a common complaint.
Yes,
If they only knew how much I think folks in HR are trying to do the right thing and don't want to be the enemy, and how they
yes,
can't actually talk about the polarity that they're in, or the struggles that they have, or kind of their own issues, right? Which is
yes.
why podcasts like this exist, which is why we need a safe space to talk about it. But um, yeah, I think if employees only knew kind of the in-between place we feel ourselves in, they might have more empathy. But they need a person to blame, and it's usually HR. So
Yeah. Yeah, and I think to your point, that is also a difference between HR and other functions within an org, right? Because it's not like, I don't know that many other functions just have the reputation um, for being the enemy, right? In the same way that HR does. And in the article, they talk too about some of those times where you really are doing your best to create, the best experience, the best environment. You're doing all of these things. and it's still kind of not enough, or you kind of have to step back and say, like, actually this is very good, we are doing a good job in the circumstances, in the situation, in the context that we're in. And that's also a really challenging and nuanced thing to represent to people when they they don't necessarily have all of the same information that we do.
Right. I think, yeah, the larger thing here is how do we tell the story of the profession and kind of what, not like a woe is me, like, don't you understand me? That's not what I mean, but more just to kind of extrapolate, um, like, yeah, the story of what we're trying to do and why it's difficult, and we don't want to be the enemy. I don't know. I think I was talking to someone, I don't know, maybe 6 months ago. A friend of a friend had um, someone was going to go to grad school potentially to enter a career in HR, and they were asking me for advice. And I was talking to her and she's like, oh, I really want to help people and that's my primary motivation, but I don't want to necessarily go and, become a therapist. And I thought, what else can I do? You might relate to this, Stacy. I
Yeah.
just said, I said, I understand the desire to help people. That's why I got into this too. And I just want to let you know, I'm not sure you're going to get the day-to-day satisfaction of that goal in some of
Yeah.
these. Um,
Yeah.
and so, yeah, I say that just because I understand this article. I believe it to be true. I have felt it too. I don't know what the solution is. Um, but I think a lot of care and helping professions are facing a similar challenge, I would say.
Oh yeah, 100%. I think they rounded out the article saying, it was essentially, I had Cindy Lauper in in my mind, just, HR just wants to have fun. We just want to work with people who respect us and tackle meaty problems to improve the organization. I was like, yes, that's what we want. That's all we're striving for.
That's so funny. That's really funny. Yeah. Um, I think that's why HR folks go to Vegas for conferences and they just want to have fun. Um, Seen that to be true. So, yeah.
Oh, that is probably why all the conferences are in Vegas, right? All right. Well, that brings us to the end of this episode. Lindsay, do you have anything, if people want to connect with you, do you have anything that you want to promote?
Thanks for asking. If folks want to connect, they can find me either on LinkedIn or at my website, which is gatheringeffect.com. Hold on, let me say that again. Gatheringeffect.com with an E. And hopefully there'll be a book out into the world at some point in the next calendar year. So maybe stay tuned for that um, in the near term future.
All right. Fabulous. Love it. And thank you so much for joining.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Toot or Boot. You can keep in touch with me, Stacy, on LinkedIn, and be sure to subscribe to our newsletter at tootorboot.com. And if you're enjoying Toot or Boot, we'd appreciate your positive review on your favorite podcast platform.